Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to walk you through the installation of Windows 7. Normally, when you start your PC with an installation disk for Windows already inserted into the optical drive, the installation should start automatically, or you will get a message saying press any key to boot from CD or DVD. If this doesn't happen, you may have to tweak some UEFI settings or BIOS settings depending on your PC. But for now, let's just assume everything went as it should. If you have such a problem, let me know down in the comments below, and I will do my best to explain what you should do in this case. We see that the installation has already started. Here we have to select system language, time zone and keyboard layout. I'm going to leave everything as it is, and we move on. Here we have to accept Microsoft's software license terms in order to use Microsoft's software, in this case Microsoft Windows. We cannot move on with the installation if we don't accept that. So we accept and click next. Here we see two options, upgrade and custom. The upgrade option is for upgrading an already installed previous version of Windows to Windows 7, in this case Windows Vista. We can use this option if we are installing Windows 7 on a computer with an already installed Windows Vista. But I'm moving on with custom, since I'm doing this on an empty hard drive. Here you have to partition your drive, and you should do this according to your needs and the total size of your disk. Since I'm doing this on a virtual machine, I'm going to use the entire space, but you can configure this yourself depending, as I said, on your total available space and your needs, but I personally recommend leaving at least 30 gigabytes for Windows 7. So we go to drive options, create new partition. I'm going to use all of the available space, apply. This message states that in order for Windows to work correctly, Windows might create additional partitions for system files. We will click OK, and Windows will automatically create a system partition about 100 megabytes total. But this doesn't concern us. We select the second main partition that we just created, and we continue. And now we have to wait for this process to finish automatically, copying files and installing the system. And while we wait, this is probably a good time for me to mention that Windows 7 is no longer supported by Microsoft. Mainstream support ended in January 2015, and when mainstream support ends, this means that the system is no longer receiving any new features. And extended support ended in January 2020, this year, which means that Windows 7 is no longer receiving any security patches or updates from Microsoft. Which doesn't mean that you can no longer use Windows 7, it simply means that Windows 7 is now vulnerable. And if you continue using Windows 7, you have to do so at your own risk, and you have to be very careful. And the installation is almost over. If I didn't mention this before, during the installation process the computer will have to restart 2 or 3 times. This is completely normal. Now we're not going to boot from CD or DVD, we're gonna let the PC boot from the hard drive. We've reached the second PC restart. And we're almost done. Now we will have to configure the PC name, username, password, desktop settings, Windows Update, and so on. Now we have to select our username and the general name of the computer. And we move on. Here we have to type our password if we want to use a password. For now I'm going to skip that step. We can always set a password later on. And here we have to enter our Windows license key, meaning our Windows activation key, if we have one. We can skip this step for now, but if you have a Windows 7 product key, you can always activate Windows later on. There's no point in setting up Windows Update, since Windows 7, as I said, no longer receives any updates whatsoever. So we're gonna skip that step. Here we have to set our time zone. Let me just find mine. and we continue. Here we have to set the type of our network. If you are doing this on your personal home computer, select home network. Since I'm doing this on a virtual machine, my computer is already connected to the network during the installation, but usually if you're doing this natively, meaning that you're installing Windows 7 on your actual computer, you will configure the network settings later after you've finished installing the operating system. And we are done with the installation. As you can see, the process is very simple, and now of course you have to install drivers. If you are using an older PC which was bought with Windows 7, or you're using a computer from the time when Windows 7 was widely used, chances are you may have a CD with drivers for Windows 7 for your computer. Otherwise, you will have to find them on the website of the manufacturer of your PC, or from the websites of the manufacturers of the separate components in your PC if you're using a desktop PC. But if you're doing this on a brand new computer, chances are you will have a very difficult time finding drivers for Windows 7, since Windows 7 is very old nowadays, and the manufacturers no longer support Windows 7, and they don't make drivers for Windows 7 for newer hardware. So if you're doing this on a newer PC, you may have a hard time finding drivers. So that's all for this video. I hope that you found it helpful. If you found the video helpful, I will appreciate it if you leave me a like and a subscribe. And till the next video.